Welcome to my channel. In this particular episode, we're going to look at the search functionality within notebooks. And that might not sound particularly exciting on the surface, but one of the great advantages of e-ink note-taking devices is this fact that not only can you take all the paper that maybe you've used before and consolidate it into this one device, but you can then kind of organize and search on those notebooks to be able to find the information you need fairly quickly. And there's actually a lot of ways you can do that, and some of them are pretty cool. So we're going to cover those in this video today. In particular, I'm going to focus on two kind of ecosystems, Supernote and Boox, because they have the most sophisticated search functionality within their note-taking apps. Pretty much anything any other company does is probably represented by what we'll see between these two devices. And I should say, it's not really the device that matters, it's really the software UI. So for Supernote, we'll be using the Nomad, but we could easily have just looked at the A5X. And for Boox, we're going to use the Note Air 3C, but could have easily used the Note Air 3, could have used the Tab Ultra Pro C, we could have used the Tab Mini C, and what have you. So it's really the software that we're talking about, and we're just happening to use two particular devices to illustrate it. Now, one thing I do want to talk about is one of the things I'll show is handwriting recognition. And handwriting recognition is a pretty amazing feature. I think both Supernote and Boox do a good job with it. I kind of like Boox's implementation a little bit better. But regardless, handwriting recognition ultimately is not foolproof. So I'll give you an example. When I first started taking notes at my workplace, I used a Boox device before I moved on to Supernote. And in that time, I used handwriting recognition. And what I would do was I would draw two X's to indicate that I had a to-do. And then I could create kind of lists by searching on the handwriting for two X's. And of course, I chose those characters because I'll never repeat them anywhere else in my note. So it's a pretty safe way of picking out to-dos. However, as good as Boox is, and there are some caveats, it does take quite a bit of time sometimes for it to go through its search function. So that's one downer to be aware of. But more importantly, I think, is it's just not going to capture that 100% of the time. So while the search functionality is really amazing and it's pretty powerful, I think if you're creating things like to-do lists or you're doing other type of searches where you need to know that whatever list you create is a complete list, you're going to want to look at some of the other features instead of the handwriting recognition. Having said that, if you're writing notebooks and you're like, oh, I remember I was talking about this topic, what notebook was that in? That's when handwriting recognition can be really effective, because then you can remember maybe a keyword that might be unique to that particular note and do a search to find something that you otherwise didn't think of labeling previously. So handwriting recognition still has its place, but just know that it's not a foolproof way of being able to search on your notes. Anyway, putting that aside, let's go ahead and take a look at the different ways you can search on notes, and we'll then wrap it up at the end. Okay, we're going to start off by looking at the handwriting search functionality within the Supernote. And this particular example is the Nomad or the A6X2. Handwriting recognition is something that can be done either within the note or across notebooks. Now, one thing to consider, however, is that in order to do handwriting recognition on a Supernote, you have to have a notebook that supports that. So what Supernote is doing basically is they're giving you the option of either doing a file type with or without handwriting recognition, because there's a sacrifice. So when you do have handwriting recognition, it's basically taking a little bit more battery power as it's storing that information of converting the handwriting to text. So that's the reason why that option is available. So how you would do that is you would swipe, you'd click on this little icon right here. Let's go ahead and click on that. And then you start a new file right here. And then there's your options. So if it's standard, you're not going to have any type of handwriting recognition. And in order to have the handwriting recognition, you have to click on this real-time recognition button when you create your notebook. Now I have a couple examples here. I've written hello in print and in cursive. And there's, again, two ways to be able to search on this. We'll start within the notebook. So if I click on this ellipse and I go to this search icon here, this is searching only for handwriting. So if this was a non-handwriting notebook, that option would not be available. I'll go ahead and type in hello. Do a little search. And it's finding the one in print, as you can see by the highlight there, does not find the one in cursive. So that's something to be aware of. Another thing to be aware of is that it does take time. So it took about 20 minutes from the time that I wrote this to the time that it was able to come up as part of a search result. So there is that delay. But once it recognizes it, you should be good going forward. Now, as I mentioned, you can also do handwriting recognition outside of a notebook, and you do that by swiping down. There's a search feature, so this will be searching across notebooks. We'll click on that. Notice that we've selected handwriting. We've gone ahead and typed in hello, and if we do a search, then we get the same result. But again, the difference is this is searching all handwriting notebooks, where before we were just looking within the notebook. So that's basically how handwriting recognition works with the Supernote. So the next thing I want to show is the star marking system that is particular to the Supernote. And there's a couple things I'll highlight about that. Let's go ahead in this example and say I really wanted to mark this hello. And as we saw in the handwriting recognition, it didn't recognize it because it's in cursive. It was only recognizing print. So I'm going to go ahead and mark it with a star. So watch as I do this. So I'm going to manually draw this star, and then it's going to convert. One of the neat things about the star marking system is that conversion tells me that the object was captured. If I created a star, let me create a clumsy star. Oh, it caught that one. Let's try that again. Let's say that I do an incomplete star. The system, this is not captured because it didn't convert to the star logo. And I should point out that you can also, the size of the star can vary. So I'm going to make a really tight star here. There we go. And you get a little smaller icon there. Let me go ahead and erase this guy. Okay. Now, this is a really neat way in order to track to-dos. And you can see how quickly you can put the marker on, and you get the quick confirmation that the marker is going to be understood by the device. And at this point, I have no concern about whether this is going to show up on my list or not. That's different than handwriting recognition. Handwriting recognition, the system may or may not recognize the text. It depends largely, of course, on the quality of my handwriting. But in this particular case, I know perfectly well that this will show up when I do searches for these stars. And how do you search for those stars? Well, there's two ways. We'll start off by searching within the notebook, in this case called Search Examples. And if I click on this little kind of table of contents icon right here, let's go ahead and do that. Then you see we have spaces for headings and keywords, which we'll get to in just a bit, and also stars. And so there's the star that we just created. I'll click on that and it'll take me here. So within the notebook, that's how you would find these stars. Between notebooks, what we'll do is we'll swipe down. We'll go back to that search function that we saw before. But instead of looking for handwriting, we'll click on this and look for the star. Like so. And then we'll just go ahead and do search. Let's get rid of this text. There we go. Okay. So by leaving the text area blank and searching on star, there we can see the example we just created. If I had multiple notebooks, there would have been multiple entries based on, it can be done one of two ways actually. Let's go ahead and go back in and take a look at that. So we can either look at file. So this would basically show any notebook that has a star would show up on the list if you did it via file. If a notebook had multiple stars, it would still only show up once. But if I did it based on page, then it would show basically every page I had a star on the device. So if I had 2 stars in this notebook on different pages, there would be 2 different entries. If there were 2 stars on the same page, you would still only get 1 entry for that. And of course, in all cases, you just click on it and it goes right to where your star is located. So that's basically the star marking system in action. It's very simple. It doesn't have the flexibility that we're about to see in terms of tags, where you can have different tags, but it is a great way to mark to-dos. And this is actually what I predominantly do when I use my Supernote at work and I'm tracking to-dos from meetings, etc. Okay, so let's take a look at keywords, again, on the Supernote. And I've written out 2 words here, one in print, one in cursive. In order to create a keyword, I'm going to go ahead and click on the lasso tool. I'm going to circle the word that I'm interested in. And I'm going to go ahead and click on this button, which is the letter K in a box. It's going to do some handwriting recognition. In this case, it got fairly close, but it did add a space. I'm going to go ahead and correct that by adding the Z, and then I'll go ahead and add that as a tag. Now we can see the tag's been applied, and of course the page has been applied too. Of course, I could press the X to get rid of it if it was a mistake. And if I back out and I go into the table of contents button, there is the keyword under key Z. Now alternately, another thing I can do, and I'll do that with this cursive word, which is also the same word. I'm going to go ahead and highlight that, click on the K, but I don't want to use, now obviously it's in cursive, so it doesn't recognize it as well as the print, but I don't want to use that anyway. I want to use key W, which is a tag that I've actually already defined, because all the tags that have already been defined are listed below. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And now I see it's been applied. And if we click on the table of contents button, we can see both keywords there. I can also delete these from here. I can also delete them by deleting the word, but it's not foolproof. So you have to actually, sometimes you can delete the word and it doesn't recognize it for whatever reason. Maybe the area wasn't large enough, and so the keyword might remain. So that is one little kind of nuance, but it is foolproof to delete the keywords from this menu. And of course, we can look up keywords across notebooks. So I'm going to swipe down. I've got the search icon here. I'm going to go ahead and click on keyword. I do have to type in the keyword in. So I'm going to type in key and do a search. And it'll actually give me any of the tags, or the keywords rather, that have the word key in it, including the 2 that we just created, which is the key W and key Z from the search examples file, as you can note here. And of course, if I click on this, it will take me to that file. So the advantage of using keywords, obviously, is the fact that you can use multiple keywords, and it's takes a little bit more effort than creating a star, but you can have multiple tags as a result, so that's the benefit. It can still be done quite quickly. So if I had a to-do, for example, I could use the star marking system, but I could also just have a to-do keyword, which I already have. And so it's still fairly quick to be able to apply these. So just a little bit more flexibility than with the star marking system, but a few more steps to get there. So now let's move on to headers. And headers are unique in a few ways, one of which is that they're only relevant inside of a notebook. So there's no searching on headers between notebooks. It's only when you're inside one that it's relevant. The way that we identify headers is similar to keywords in that we'll go ahead and click on the lasso. We'll circle what we're interested in. And then instead of the K, we're going to click on this H. Now we get 4 options here. We'll go ahead and do each one. All that we're doing between these 4 options is changing how it looks on the page. So this is a formatting, but the functionality will be the same. So there's 1. There's 2. 3, and finally 4. Okay, so again, no difference in how these headers will function other than how they look on the page, and you can see the options there. So how do you get to the headers? Well, we're going to return back to this table of contents, and we'll click on this Headings tab, and there they are. You see everything I selected when I did the lasso tool is now shown here, and of course, as usual, these are all hyperlinks to those particular items, like so. So pretty cool. A great way of referencing a notebook, particularly if it's a long notebook and you have different sections. If I add pages, everything adjusts accordingly. So it's a pretty powerful feature that is unique to the Supernote. Now, one last note about headers before we move on is that it will actually capture anything, including an image. So I wrote, a very basic smiley face. Let's go ahead and highlight this whole thing. We'll create that as a header, and we'll just format it like so. So now, if I go into this table of contents, you can see it captured the entire thing. And of course, in a similar vein, if I wanted to just create a series of visuals, I can highlight that, turn that into a header, and if I go over, there it is. So pretty cool. So you have a lot of control in terms of what it looks like when you're listing the headers. I can also change the orientation to this way, so you can see if you had a lot of information, then it would scroll down accordingly. And that's true in the keywords and the star marking system too. You can change how they come across in this table of contents screen. Okay, the last thing that I want to talk about is there's one last feature. It's only used outside of the notebook. So it's not within a notebook, it's across all notebooks. We're going to go back to this search feature. And if you click on this icon over here, we've searched on keywords, we've searched on stars, and we've searched on handwriting. We haven't searched on file. So what file is basically just the looking for the file names of your notebooks or other documents. So if I do demo, we'll just do dem and search. See, it'll find two documents, one a notebook and one a PDF file with that title. So most devices have this type of search functionality, and the Supernote does as well. Just one thing to finally note is that we talked earlier about handwriting, about some documents having handwriting recognition and others not. You can tell by this little icon in the upper right corner, this has handwriting recognition, and this document down below does not. And that is all the search functionality related to the Supernote. All right, so let's turn our attention to Boox. And in this particular case, we'll be using the Note Air 3C. And the screen is a little bit darker, and for many of you know, that's because this is using a color screen, particularly Kaleido 3. Actually, I think it's pronounced Kaleido, but I like to prefer Kaleido. Regardless, there's a color filter on top, which makes the screen a little bit darker. And sometimes that means you need to use front lighting a little bit more in order to see it more effectively. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to go ahead and swipe down and get a little bit of front lighting. We probably don't need too much here, just to make it look a little easier on the eyes. Okay, so much like with the Supernote, we're going to go ahead and start with handwriting recognition. And in this particular case, I've written, just like with the Supernote, hello in print and hello in cursive. Handwriting recognition, much like with Supernote, can be done both inside the notebook and between notebooks. So let's start with inside the notebook. We're going to go ahead and click on, you can't see it here, but down below there's this more icon. So if we click on that, there's then a search icon you can see there. We'll click on that. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and come over to handwriting. And I just want to click on handwriting, so we'll do that. And I'm going to type hello and do a search. And there we go. Now, interestingly, the Boox picks up both the print as well as the cursive version. And as a little bonus, went ahead and took my basic smiley face and turned it into an emoji. with the result. So kind of cool. Both, of course, hyperlink to that item. And then if I want to go on the page, I just click on here. Now you can also search between notebooks. So in order to do that, I'm going to go ahead and get out of this notebook. Okay, so now I'm here in the home screen of the notebook app. I'm going to go ahead and click on this little search icon here. Same deal. I'm going to go ahead. I've selected just handwriting. I'm going to go ahead and type hello and do a search. Now, one of the issues with searching on a Boox device for handwriting is it can take some time. You can see that, yes, these two things came up immediately, partly because I've already done a search on these. And it's searching all the other notebooks, and it's taking a while. I don't have very many notebooks. So this is actually one of the easiest scenarios for the Boox device to search. So one of the flaws of the Boox device is the amount of time it takes to search for notebooks. I'm going to go ahead and let this, there we go, let it finish. And I will show just a second, there is something that kind of helps with that. But first, these are, of course, are both hyperlinks. If I click on that, it takes me straight into that page. Now, if I get out of this file, just to talk about, and let's get out of the search. If we click on this little icon up here, there is some options. We'll click on that. And so here, automatic recognition in the background, if you have this on, that will speed up the handwriting recognition. If you have it off, it's going to take longer. And again, it'll be dependent on how many notebook files you have. Regardless, one of the weaknesses of it is that it is slow, but as we saw, it picked up both print and cursive. So there are advantages to Boox's handwriting recognition as well. Boox can also search based on text, and that can all be done within a notebook or between notebooks. So let's go ahead and see that in action. I'm going to go ahead and create a little text box here. I'm going to click on that. All right, we'll type yo. See if I can move this. There we go. Okay, so I can search now on that text. So we'll go ahead and get out of this. And we'll do the search first inside of the document. See, we've got text clicked on there. I'll unclick on handwriting so that won't bog me down. Yo, and there it is. It found it. In a similar fashion, we'll go ahead and back out of this notebook. Click on the search feature, and we'll unclick handwriting. We'll click on text. And again, I'm unclicking handwriting so the search will be faster. You can see it's much quicker. And then, of course, it found the text. All right, let's move on to tags. Tags are pretty much synonymous with keywords that we went over with Supernote. Most companies have used the phrase tags. We're talking, obviously, Boox in this case, Remarkable, Mobiscribe. They use the phrase tags where Supernote would use keywords. But again, a very similar concept. Let's go ahead and see that in action. I've written the word tags here, both in print and in what I would call cursive. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the lasso button. We'll start with this first one. Okay, and then because I've lassoed this up above, we have a number of options, one of which is tags. I'm going to go ahead and click on that. It'll do its handwriting recognition, and I have a couple options, much like with the Supernote. I can either accept the handwriting recognition that it gave. I could also delete it by clicking on this X and then typing in whatever tag I want, or I could pick a tag that's already been created, but I'm going to go ahead and work with this tags with a Z, and we're good. Let's go ahead and repeat that. I'm going to get out here, and we're on lasso. I'm going to go ahead and look at this cursive one. We'll click on tags. Okay, didn't quite get it, so I'm going to go ahead and edit that with a Z. Actually, I could have just applied it like so. We'll go ahead and do it like that. And you might notice there's a faint outline on the document that indicates that this text has been tagged. It's not, it's very faint, but there's a rectangle here and here. You can see the line just, well, just to the left of my pointer. You can see the line. You can see the same line just to the left here. Okay, so let's go ahead and do search. So again, I'm going to click on this little search icon. But now I'm in the tags tab, and I've got a couple options. First off, it's already listing all the tags in the document, but I can also just go ahead and click on tags to show the ones that I want. And again, you can see a faint outline of a rectangle here. If I click on this, then it highlights the second one, and I can click on the document to get into that page. If I go ahead and back out of the notebook, we'll go into the search icon. So I'm going to go ahead and click on tags. And in this particular case, by clicking on tags, it actually has some of what they call the popular tags. And I can go ahead and just click on that, and it'll go ahead and do a search. And you can see how quickly that search was. And if I click on either of these, it'll take me to that page. So as you can see, very similar to keywords. If I go ahead and delete it, like so, then it will disappear. We can see now there's only one tags in this notebook, and there it is. So very similar functionality, and of course that also means it has similar benefits in that you can have multiple tags. It takes a couple additional steps to create them because you have to lasso and then go through the definition process. But if you're using pre-existing tags, it's fairly quick. Let's do a to-do as an example. So we'll first create this as a tag, and then we'll see how quickly we can then apply it subsequently. So I'm going to go ahead and lasso this. Tag it, got it perfectly, so I'll say OK. Now I'm going to create, oops, let me back out, sorry, lasso, do the second one, click tags, I've got an existing to-do tag, click on that, click OK, and you can tell that it captured it because it's got the box there. So pretty easy, and that's how you do tags on the Boox device. Now Boox does have some additional searching functionality that only exists inside of a notebook. And it's similar to the Supernote star marking system, but there are a couple of notable differences. And so we'll just kind of go ahead and walk through that. And you might have actually noticed that if I click on the more and click on the search option, and if we go to handwriting, there's these little icons. There's this square, and then there's this asterisk. These are things that you can draw, and the Boox device will then list those in your search results as you draw them. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll do both. So we've got some squares and some asterisks. So I can draw, a nice square here. I can use the I've got the AI set up where I'm having shape perfection. So let's go ahead and do that, where I draw a square and I hold it, and see it becomes a perfect square. And then let me just draw kind of like a little parallel, kind of a whatever that is. And then we'll do the same thing then. We'll do an asterisk here. And actually I think their asterisk was more like that. And then we'll do a star, and then we'll do a star with shape perfection. Okay. Now, unlike the Supernote system, there's nothing that's visually telling me that the Boox device has captured these icons. So I don't actually know if the Boox device will recognize these or not. However, in my experience, the Boox device is actually pretty liberal in terms of what it picks up. So why don't we go ahead and take a look and see if it captured these 3 boxes and these 4 asterisks. So again, because we're only doing this with inside the notebook, I'll go ahead and click on the search icon. Go over to handwriting, And I'm going to go ahead and click on that box first. Okay, and this is interesting. So it found this one, it found that one, and it found that one. I guess the interesting thing is it also brought the asterisk and the star along with it, which is curious. But the point here is it captured this sloppy box, it captured this perfect box, and it captured this parallelogram. So actually, it's very reliable. Let's go ahead and click on this asterisk and see if it captured all of those, and it has. There's the first one, there's the second one, there's a third one, and there's the fourth. So pretty cool. So this is kind of similar to the Supernote star marking system. The predominant differences, of course, being that you don't get visual representation that the icon took, but conversely, you get a pretty liberal range of icons that you can create, and it'll be captured. It captured all 7 of these icons. On the flip side, and of course the bonus, is that you can have multiple, like if you don't want to do a star, you can just do a box to track your to-dos. And then of course, like anything, if you delete them, it would be removed from the list. So let's go ahead and delete this box, and let's delete this star. And so let's go into search. Again, on handwriting, click on the box. Okay, now it only recognizes the 2 boxes. Click on the asterisk, and it only recognizes the 3 remaining asterisks. So a pretty good and pretty unique implementation. The main limitation ultimately is that this functionality only exists within the notebook, where the star marking system on the Supernote exists between notebooks. Okay, the last piece of search functionality I want to share, very similar to the Supernote, is that you can do the search for titles of notebooks. And again, much like the Supernote, that only exists when you're outside of a notebook. So if we click on this search icon, and we'll go ahead and unclick on tags, and just go to title, we can go ahead and type in, I'll just go ahead and type in a few letters there, and of course it quickly brings up the notebook called Search Examples. So very similar. Actually, most devices have some form of title. Searching function, and Boox is no different. Okay, I hope you found that helpful. This is actually a little bit of a prelude to another video I'm going to release probably in a week, where we look at the different note-taking apps and kind of share what makes Amazon Kindle different than, say, the Supernote, and going along that continuum about how these note-taking apps differ and how they stack up against each other. Not necessarily in the light of, oh, this is better than the other, but just to describe how they're different. And they're different in quite a few important ways. Of course, one of them is the search functionality, so I'll talk to that in that video, but I didn't want to take the time to actually kind of walk through all the search functionality, so this will supplement that conversation, I think, quite nicely. So hopefully you can look forward to seeing that. Otherwise, if you have any comments, anything I missed, anything I got wrong, please pop those in the comments. I'd appreciate it. Be sure to subscribe. That's really helpful for me too, because the more subscribers, the more devices I could potentially review, and so on. So with all that being said, thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a great day.